Hi, hello, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Now, a few days ago, I got notification through from the CRT about the reopening of the Oxford Canal. Basically, it said that between the 10th of October through to the 2nd of November, that the sort of Napton flight area would be opening up, limited access with locks opening for short periods of time. And for the sort of lower section of the Oxford Canal, from the top of the sort of Claydon flight at the sort of summit of the Oxford Canal south, that would be opening from the 27th of October through to the 2nd of November, again with restrictions on when the locks would be open and when you'd be able to go through the particular locks. So anyway, with the canals opening up, be it limited opening up, I thought I'd come back and have a look at the reservoirs and see how they're getting on. And so my first stop is the Boddington Reservoir. Well, here we are at one of the feeders into the Boddington Reservoir, and I'm surprised at how little water there is in it after all the rain we've had. I was expecting to see a bit more than that. But anyway, it's good to see that there's water in it and it's flowing. But the question is, what's going on at the reservoir? Well, my initial thought as I approached the reservoir was that there was more water in it than I was expecting. However, now that I look at it more closely, it doesn't appear to have gone up much at all from my last visit about 2 months ago. What do you think? If anything, if you look at it, the level appears to have dropped in the last few days. You can see sort of some wet mud exposed. Yes, overall quite disappointing. I was expecting after all the rain we'd had that the level would have come up a bit. What had been brown-grey mudflats a few months ago are now worryingly green. It's almost as though it's becoming a pasture. The water level in the Boddington Reservoir was still very, very low. I would guess 10 feet below where it could be. It's going to take a lot of rain to bring this back up to the levels required. If you look at the banks of the reservoir, it appears to be a good 10 to 12 feet below where it could be. And that's worrying. It's going to take a lot of rain to get this reservoir refilled, and this one feeds the Grand Union and the Oxford Canal. Now, I was speaking to a local as I was going around the reservoir, and they told me that this reservoir does fill quite quickly because it's got a large catchment area. So rain that falls into the area is channeled into this reservoir. Let's hope for a wet winter, and that's something I thought I'd never say. My next stop was the Wormleighton Reservoir. And for the sake of making a video, I put my life at risk again crossing the main line. And just like last time, there were 2 trains as I arrived at the crossing. Lucky I checked with the signal box. Okay, so here we are approaching the Wormleighton Reservoir. The first thing that I notice is that some of the cracks in the footpath here have sort of filled in with the recent rain, but there are still some pretty big cracks around, which just tells you how dry it has been. Overall, the summit of the Oxford Canal doesn't look too bad. Down possibly 6 to 10 inches, I'd guess. But Still got water in it. But what does the Wormleighton Reservoir look like? Oh wow, not good. I would say no improvement from when I was last here. What was that? A couple of months ago? Levels in the Wormleighton Reservoir are still shockingly low. The lack of water in the reservoirs also disturbs their ecosystems. I saw a lot of dead freshwater mussels, and at the Wormleighton Reservoir there were very few birds around. I think I saw a couple of herons. At the Boddington Reservoir there was a lot more wildlife. But when you actually look at the reservoir, it's hardly surprising. I mean, it almost looks like a field in places. It's so empty and dried out. What happened to all the fish? I assume they're down the wet end. The last time I was at the reservoir, I commented on the number of cracks I could see in the bank, and they were still very much evident. Really large cracks around the place. Quite worrying. So the lack of water in the reservoir is not only impacting the wildlife, but it's also impacting the structure of the reservoir. And this is the depth gauge of the reservoir. If you count the number of 10 centimetre divisions, I make it 20, so that means it's down 2 metres, which is well over 6 feet. Now this is the start of the Fenny Compton tunnel, and if you want to know why there isn't a tunnel here, then have a look at one of my earlier videos where I looked at why there isn't a tunnel at the Fenny Compton tunnel. It's quite an interesting story actually. However, a little way along here is a key piece of infrastructure for the Wormleighton Reservoir. So let's go along and see if we can find it. Okay, so it doesn't look like much, but this is actually the remains of a feeder stream that originally flowed into the Wormleighton Reservoir. Originally it flowed quite naturally across the top of the tunnel. The stream had been there for many years, and when the tunnel was removed, of course the stream went. But what they did was they installed an iron trough across the canal here, so the stream could continue flowing across the canal and then down to the Wormleighton Reservoir where the water could be collected. That trough has long since gone and has now been replaced by this sort of spillway. So when the stream is flowing, it comes down here, this sort of weird step-like structure, straight into the canal. There is no collection in the reservoir. As you can see, at the moment there is no water going down it. And so the stream would have crossed the canal and then flowed along the hedge line that you can just see across the field and down into the reservoir. So the stream would have come in here into the Wormleighton Reservoir, and as you can see it is completely dry. It's clear that no water has been flowing down this for several months. And any overflow from the stream would have been directed down this channel into the canal. And it's around here that the water would have entered the reservoir, and as you can see the reservoir looks more like a field at this end than it does a reservoir. Clearly no water has flowed into this for some time. Okay, so here we are at the third and final reservoir, Clattercote Reservoir. Let's see how this one's doing. Well, this reservoir's actually come up quite a lot since my first visit. Quite good to see. It's hard to say how far it's come up because it's coming up across very flat bits of sort of exposed reservoir bed, but it has come up quite a surprising Well, I'm surprised at this. Quite amazing. Yes, I was pleasantly surprised at how much water the Clattercote Reservoir seems to have accumulated. I was speaking to a couple of people at the reservoir and they told me that this one does tend to recover quite quickly, but it was the lowest they'd seen it in a number of years. Okay, so that's my quick trip around the 3 reservoirs that feed into the Oxford Canal. And I was surprised and disappointed just how low the water levels were in the Boddington and Wormleighton reservoirs. However, the Clattercote Reservoir seems to be doing really well. It seems to have come up quite a bit. Anyway, hope you found this interesting. Fingers crossed that we get some rain, really odd thing to say, and that the canals can soon completely reopen. And hopefully we'll all be able to go out cruising again sometime soon. Anyway, thanks for watching for this long. On the screen now you'll see a QR code that will take you through to a free newsletter about the grey wagtail. Again, thanks for watching this long. Bye for now.